You ready, Rick? Okay, 3, 2.
Okay, welcome to Let's Get Into It, the World Championship podcast of indie filmmaking. Amazing group of people. I'm Rick Najera, and I'm stepping in for Mark Roberts.
He's out. Coup has been thrown.
It was a coup? It was a coup?
It's a coup. Let's get rid of Robert.
Okay, listen.
Who won the fight? Look at the poster and just say, who won?
Uh-oh.
The guy with the mustache.
That's right. Plus, actually, he looks too. He's too wide open.
He's too wide open.
It's like you're gonna get an uppercut in there, start working the body, get in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wouldn't have made it.
He wouldn't have made it.
Yeah, Mark was a drinker.
He was.
But today for the show, we have an amazing guest on right now, Steven Bernstein, and Steven is one of those guys that we openly envy.
Yes.
I was hearing about his life before we started the show. This man has an incredible life. He lives in London. He's got a place in Greece. He's doing a lot of work. He's been an incredible cinematographer, director, writer, he's played roles in films.
He's done it all.
He's kind of done it all.
You know how? So I met Steven through social media. I started following, I follow the hashtags like screenwriting, directing, stuff like that. And one of his videos popped up, and it was so intriguing and so informative that I was like, who is this dude? So I started following him. Then come to find out, he started teaching. He started a school in Greece, and my wife is Greek. I don't know if anybody knows. She's from the island of Naxos, her family.
Really?
That's my end game. Like, we talk about whenever things get rough, we say, just think about Naxos. We're going to end up there, drinking Greek wine. She has property. She's got everything, but I have little kids. I can't go yet. So
what's the little kid stopping you from going there?
I mean, you want them to grow up, get an education here, plus family and all that stuff. But then Steven's actually living like my dream. I mean, the guy's super accomplished. He's like living in Greece, teaching film. I'm going with you.
Steven is living my dream as well. With most of independent filmmakers' dreams, because
yes, that
what
is
he's
true.
done, he's gone from you've done some incredibly commercial films and some big blockbusters and some really good artistic films as well. But the independent filmmaker, the spirit of an independent filmmaker, all those people that couldn't get with the studio and just sat there and said, I'm going to do it on my own, and we're going to do this right, and this is our dream. You've actually done both sides of that camera.
I have. I like to pretend that it was all a plan that I had. People say to me, how is it that you shot like Water for Chocolate and Monster and the films of Noah Baumbach, and also did White Chicks and Little Man and SWAT. And sometimes in interviews I pretend that I had planned that so that I could have a diverse stimulus and I could be doing big studio films. And then when the mood struck, I could go and do an important art film. But really, I was just willing to do anything that people were willing to pay me to do.
So if there was a buck in it, so were you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea that I was driven by integrity or vision is misguided. What actually happened was I had moved to England when I was relatively young, came back, and didn't realize, having never lived in Los Angeles, what a complex and difficult place this is to navigate. And the first few films I got were non-union, when you could do those sort of things in those days, very, very low budget, and really just acts of desperation because I had to live. I had a rent to pay, I had a small child, and I brought my English wife back with me. I thought it was going to be easier. I just shot a film called Like Water for Chocolate, which kind of was a phenomenon, so I presumed that everyone would be offering me work, and they did, but I wasn't in the American Union yet. I didn't know anybody here. Then the first year was very difficult. Remarkably, one of the first very small budget films I did was with a producer named Clark Peterson. Very kind. We did a terrible little film that we shot in 16 days. And why we even bothered spending 16 days on that terrible film, I don't know, but it was terrible.
You got to get terrible just right.
Yeah, terrible was that we in a little warehouse. We do a take, and the director would say, maybe we should do, and the producer, moving on.
We got it.
Don't have time for this. Let's not worry about performance or quality. Let's let quality get in the way of completing
finish it.
our schedule. And as long as we finish it, we've achieved something. But years later, I'm on the 3rd Street Bridge, we're landing on an airplane there with 23 cameras, a giant metal plate to pull this faux 3/4 scale airplane down, stuntmen and gunfire and thousands of lights and big Moscow lights and everything else, and living the dream. Kind of. I'm virtually suicidal at this point because the only one thing worse than not getting what you want is getting what you want.
Yes.
And finding it kind of emotionally empty.
Yeah.
I get this call from Clark, and he's in Florida, and they're doing this little tiny movie there, and they're in trouble, technical problems, problems between the director and the cinematographer, and they're 2 days in, and they're 1 day behind. It's catastrophic, and is there any way in the world that I can come down there and pick it up, speak to the director, and see what's going to happen? I'm shooting SWAT. They're paying me a bloody fortune. It's fantastic when you get onto that gravy train in Los Angeles because they hired me and any equipment I wanted and cars driving me to the set and overtime. And, I mean, I was making so much money, I bought an airplane. I'm serious.
That is
I bought an airplane.
Now we're talking. It was
this isn't a little toy airplane. No, this is no. Come on,
we're in the Piper
Come on, I'm not being crazy. This is like a.
I was like, how much they pay you?
Little Cessna, 4-seater, but it kept at Santa Monica Airport. So, but still was.
Do you know how to fly?
Yeah, I got a pilot's license.
Oh, good.
But yeah, for years, No, I wasn't just.
I bought a plane.
Yeah. Hey, you want to see my plane? Can you fly? No, but
it's beautiful. Sit in it.
You want to sit in it? No,
it's great.
Can't fly it. But no. I flew it all over. Took it to film sets and took it to movies, and it was great. Expensive though, and little did I realize that I would go through my money in a hurry. But meanwhile, Los Angeles is a city where you come and buy things you don't need, and then take jobs you don't want to pay for the things you don't need. And so I did that very successfully. Clark rings me. I was like, come to Florida. And I go, well, Clark, I'm in the middle of SWAT. I'm making tons of money. Let me see, because we're near the end of production here. And I was doing the action unit, so I wasn't that essential. Having a good time. Read the script and said, wow, the script is incredible. Really incredible. Spoke to the director, who was one of the most remarkable women I've ever met. And she was incredibly enthusiastic, full of good ideas. It was her first movie. She just came out of the AFI. Spoke to the actress, who was very pretty but hadn't really been in anything. And I said, you know what? I'll go and I asked Clark what he's going to pay me. And he's paying me basically what my focus puller was getting for the per diem. I mean, it was like no money at all. Went down to Florida, fired a bunch of people, hired some others, retooled, restarted, shot the film. It was remarkable because everyone had such integrity of vision. They really cared about what they were doing. So for me, it gave me a rebirth, a new energy. And I said, oh, well, this is what film's about. This really matters. And we finished it. We're all crying. And I turned to the main actress named Charlize Theron and said, most incredible performance I've ever seen.
Turned very beautiful woman, but for the monster.
No, she was not.
She
said to me, I remember sitting next to her, and she'd put on like 30 pounds. She had these false teeth, this bra she'd worn day and night, chain smoking. And she said, you're the first person to really successfully make me look ugly. And I think she was flattering me for a DP. That wasn't the best thing. And, of course, the film was Monster. She won the Golden Globe. She won the Oscar. Patty Jenkins, who was the director, doing her first film, went on to do Wonder Woman. Now just spoke to Patty. She's doing Wonder Woman 2 in London. And it shows you the nature of the decisions we make. And we're caused to make. In Los Angeles, you choose between the money very often and the integrity. And often, like on my last film, a little movie called Last Call with John Malkovich, the way I got John was not because John got a big payday, because, forgive me for saying this, John, he didn't get a big payday, but he loved the script. And John, like so many actors...
Well, he's had so many paydays. I mean, you almost kind of look at it that way. You go, look, you've had a great career, you've had paydays. Sometimes you got to follow your heart.
Yeah, and I think that actors care about their craft, and they want the opportunity to, use their acting muscle and to really apply their skill sets to films that they care about. The film before that was about breast cancer, and I reached out to Helen Hunt and Samantha Morton, both Oscar nominees. Helen's won a
Helen Hunt's incredible,
and they came and worked on it as well for a very, very small wage. So it's always this balance here between doing things for integrity, doing things to demonstrate your skill set, building your brand maybe, and then doing just things for the money. You got to find that balance.
Well, you've done everything. I mean, you got an award for just even your commercial work. Which is very lucrative. Commercial is a great way to make a living, but it's, I'm sure, not what you want to do at that time.
Well, or the music videos I was doing in England in those days, it's not always what you want to do. But the great thing is, and as a lot of people starting out in the industry do this, is just work. All joking aside about how my career began when I first came to LA, if you work, you meet people. If you work, you acquire a skill set. If you work, you begin to understand complex notions that you could never conceptualize just looking at them from the outside. When you're on a set doing a commercial against the clock, you have to make a determination about what's important, what isn't. Is it the beauty? Is it the subject matter? Is it simply the story? You evolve new problem-solving techniques, and you come to a better understanding of yourself as a person, as an artist, as a technician.
Well, doing a commercial is telling a story in so many seconds. It's almost like doing Twitter kind of thing. It's like you have to kind of cut back what you don't need, really get to the heart of it, and that's another skill set.
You get to a really essential thing here, and something I talk about a lot in screenwriting is determining what's important and what isn't. There's sustaining myths in Hollywood about how the industry works and what we're supposed to do, and everyone keeps saying over and over again, it's just about storytelling. We're just storytelling. All that matters is the script. All that matters is the story. That's fundamentally wrong. Mm-hmm. The story is a tool that we use. Yeah. But we use that tool to affect, alter, transmogrify our audiences. Mm-hmm. When you go to an art gallery and you look at a painting, there's no story there. When you look at a Van Gogh or a Renoir, you're moved by it. It affects you. It may even alter you, but there's no story. So we have to recognize in the exercise of our craft, our art, we're doing something besides storytelling. And we can't think that storytelling is our sole object. It's simply a tool in our arsenal to affect audience. Once we think that way, then all of a sudden we start looking at cinematography, editing, music in a wholly different way, and we say, our object is to affect audience, to move them, to change them, to make them think, but not just to tell a story or to entertain.
It's a big part of it.
But not just to tell a story.
Yeah.
And then only through that practice and application on film sets, we come to a whole new understanding of the way film works, and our approach to it changed the way I write, changed the way I direct, and changed me as a cinematographer as well. Look, when I did Monster, if I had done it 10 years earlier, I would have been showing off and using dollies and fancy lighting and making lots of little elegant highlights and so on. But then I thought, that's not what this is about. Yeah. This is actually a very strange love story about how even the most desperate and morally bankrupt of people still need love, to be loved and to be loved in its turn. And that changed the way we approach that film. And
no actor plays a bad guy. Because the worst bad guy thinks they're a great guy. That's why it works.
Everybody thinks they're a hero of their own story, and that's another thing that when you understand that when you're writing a story, you can't make somebody a villain. Yeah. When you're a director and giving notes, you're always giving the notes to the villain, explain how they rationalize their behavior, how they're basically good people, at least how they perceive themselves.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing a picture of guards at Auschwitz, and they had they on their day off, and they have the little. They had musical instruments. They're smiling and laughing, and I'm looking at them, going, "These are monsters."
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the same time, that day it was their day off, and they were out to have a good time. So, even the worst monster, there is a part of humanity still in them, right. And I believe it a lot of times. It's your story, because the bottom line of all the work you've done, it's still through the eyes of your story, how your background has affected you, how you've seen your life, and you've had a very eclectic life. I mean, from New York, London, Greece. I mean, I would say there's 3 very radically different places, and you've had to manage in all 3 of them.
Yeah. Look, my sister once said that she didn't know who I was because I'm constantly reinventing myself.
Yeah.
And
which is very artistic. I mean, that's the artist's way.
It may be. Yeah, it could be. I don't know if it was intentional, but once I was on that road, once I was on that journey, I think it made me a more interesting person, a better person. I was never the same thing. Now, that could be to do with a restlessness or a boredom or a narcissism or a self-destructive impulse. But when I first went from the States to England, it was a whole new Steve Bernstein that arrived there. And it was great because in the days before the internet, I could completely evacuate my previous self and become a new person. When I came back from England to the U.S., I could again evacuate my previous self. And in Greece, I was somebody different again, in part because of the collective audience. Greek people see me differently than Americans do. Yeah. They think I'm some big-time American
whenever you leave Hollywood, I hate to say it.
They think I'm Hollywood.
Anyone, you could be craft service in Hollywood, and you go somewhere else, you're like, oh, my God, it's the craft service guy from Terminator. Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
Set up a little signatures and things like that. Get your picture taken.
It used to be the jackets they would give to film crews. I met a AD who worked for one day on Titanic. But damn, if he didn't wear that jacket every single day, and every reference was Titanic, he said, well, as we did it on Titanic, and after about 2 weeks of it, one of us was bolder than the others. He said, well, how long were you on Titanic? He said, well, I was there for an afternoon, for a day, down on the beach. I
was wrangling the rats in the sinking scene.
Doing some extra wrangling. Yeah. But man, that code gave him... Look, the thing about freelancing is everybody lives in terror. You always presume that you're going to be defamed, fired, or emotionally murdered.
You're worried about the fraud squad. It comes up, knocks on your shoulder.
No, it's unlike the military where they're the false soldier, the false glory thing. You don't have that in the film industry. So everybody's pretending, or they feel that they're pretending. Mm-hmm. So first of all, there's alliances that are formed. I won't kill you if you don't kill me. I won't undermine you if you don't undermine me. And then as you work also, you're constantly trying to demonstrate that, hey, you're substantive, you worked on big movies, you name drop. I've never seen so much name dropping the first 3 days of a film shoot. And not because people are evil, they're terrified.
Yeah.
Even as we were talking when I first arrived, we were all sort of measuring each other and trying to determine, what value individually we had. Los Angeles and the industry generally, it's hard because there's no recognition of just fundamental worth. That because we're in front of another human being who's decent and kind, they have a value. In Los Angeles, they have a value because they know somebody famous, they've done something interesting, or they have a lot of money. Yeah. And I don't mean to sound like a moralist, but maybe there's something wrong with the culture that thinks that way. Maybe people do have fundamental value, not based on their wealth or their connections.
Well, I think that is the inherent problem. I mean, I'm not going to get political for a second, but we elected a reality star. I mean, we elected a Hollywood reality star. So that is telling you what America's looking for. You're going, we've got someone who's done all these different jobs or these different people, but a man on a reality TV show is to people in America presidential, which even doesn't do presidential things. But you look at that and you go, I think we almost have to get to, we're so enthused by what you did, advertising. We're an advertising nation. We're constantly selling something. We're always doing this. Right. And I think as artists, we're trying to find the truth within our art because that's really it. I mean, I know when you're sitting out in that dock in Greece looking at your life, looking at that clear water down below and having some...
great, though, when you was telling
it sounded really great. Are you kidding me?
It put me right there. I was like, that's what it's about.
But Greece does have clear water and warm water. And by the way, really decent and good people.
Very good people.
There's a fantastic film. There's a film years ago called The Conversation, Francis Ford Coppola. I talked about these very issues because the guy is a professional, but he overhears a crime. He doesn't intervene in the crime. He doesn't do anything about it because he's a professional, and that's not his job. His job is just to make in fact, in this case, a sound recording.
And it was John Travolta.
No, it was. It was.
John Travolta.
It was. It'll come to me in a second. It wasn't John Travolta, but a well-known actor. And why am I going blank on him? It'll come to me. But the fact is that if we judge people by their ability to make money, as opposed to whether they're good or not, I think we're in trouble, and that's the problem maybe with our industry, is we're judging people not whether they're good or bad, but whether they've made money. It's kind of interesting, the Me Too movement, although maybe there's some issues with it, and not for me to judge, because I haven't been here for a few years, but now people are being judged not by whether they simply had financial success, but whether they're doing the right thing or not. And I think that's maybe a better approach that all of us should take. Ultimately, I think it's hard to judge anybody. We're all very complex people. Yeah. But going back to the idea of the president... people often say, well, he may not be a good person, but he made a lot of money. Well, I don't know how you get by the first part of that sentence. Yeah. Maybe he's not a good person. Well, I think it matters whether you're a good person or not.
I agree with you. I think it totally matters. And I think real artists, and you're constantly, we see something, it's like Michelangelo. He's looking in the Marlboro and he sees the Pieta. And, we tend to look at things and say, I see the beauty in it. And the old saying of, I see the world not as it is, but as it should be. That's the artist. And that's why artists are the ones that are stepping over and going back with the story, back to the community and the tribe, going, here's something I saw, here's the story. And we have so many stories. And I think it's always the stories, your own personal stories, the beginning of every story. That has to be somewhere in there. So it's coming from truth.
It's the truth. I think is the big thing. Is that we acquire understandings, and we want to pass that understanding on to others, whatever the understanding may be. We can have a visceral response to a bit of music, and what we come to learn is that we have an audience that shares that visceral reaction. Yeah. So there's something in a chord progression or something in a minor key that collectively affects people. We spent a lot of time in Paris recently, my partner Carolyn Rodney and I, and we went out to see Auberge, where Van Gogh died.
Yeah.
And it was stunning and moving because he painted these 80 paintings, whatever it was, in the month before he passed away, and then he killed himself and so on. But what struck me was everyone who looked at his art was moved by it. So what we see is not our differences, but things that we share. There are things that touch each of us collectively that it's significant to recognize. It's what our humanity is about.
Yeah, you're talking really about community, which is the basis of what our humanity is. We're a very communal species. We need the community around us, and we need to be working within that community. And we go back to each of our individual communities, which starts at family and builds this other big thing. But we want to be the storyteller. I remember my father, when I was a kid, he would go to these movies that we could not afford. So he would go and he'd come back and tell me the plot of the movie. And I would watch the movie, and years later I'd see the movie and I'd go, oh, I was so disappointed. It's not as good as what he told me. He told me these great stories about these films. And I remember how he would distill the story to just a great way of saying I'd hear is how he felt. And that's storytelling. You know, that's what you're doing. You have different tools, of course, and, things you can do. But in the end, I think it's pretty basic what the story is. But it starts with your story.
Kind of.
Now, how is your story, now that I'm asking it?
Yes.
Because how would you say this business and this world you've been, how has it affected you personally?
Well, look, you're going to some things that are very fundamental to my understanding of the world. And the imposition of narrative to the chaos of our lives is significant. And what we do in that imposition of narrative or structure is we try to give order to the events as they occur. Very often the order is not correct or real, but that doesn't matter. We want order. I would say, for example, that all art is the desire of the chaotic mind to impose order on a disordered world. That's what it is. So
define order and logic in something that sometimes isn't logical.
That's right. We would prefer even wrong logic to real logic or to real evidence of the world having an order, because I don't think the world is necessarily ordered. I think it was trying to think, was it Pascal who said that if there wasn't a God, we would have invented one.
Yes.
And I don't mean necessarily to comment on the existence of God or not, but what he's going to is that the need to see reason in all events, that why people invent conspiracy theories is that there may not be any conspiracies, but a conspiracy is a more comforting thing than the idea that events are simply chaotic. Yeah. If something tragic happens to us or our loved ones or to people that we know or recognize as like us, to think that it's just arbitrary, that there's no ultimately controlling divine order, is terrifying, because that means it could happen to us. And going back to the understanding of my own life and my own journey, as I look back, I think it was generally chaos. I think I had impulses. I had a general sense of what I wanted to do, but it was very general. And one of my virtues, my ability to pivot very quickly, but also those things were to my greatest detriment, in that I'd be going down a particular avenue or road, and suddenly something else would stimulate me or interest me, and I would be doing something else. I started as a writer. I then had an opportunity to shoot music videos. Someone needed a camera, and someone who had access to a camera, I owned a camera. They asked me to shoot some music videos. That led to other music videos. Suddenly I was a shooter. I was a cinematographer shooting all the time. What happened to the writing? Well, I was doing some writing as well. So I decided to write a book. And I wrote a book based on all my experience of film.
Which is a bestseller.
It was a bestseller. Sold a lot of copies, used in universities all around the world. Suddenly I was lecturing. That was fun. Shot an important independent film. They asked me to come to America. I left England and I came to America. They called me the Prince of Darkness because everything I shot was dark and gloomy and terrifying and all backlit. And then I got an agent. The agent said, hey, there's a big comedy over at Universal. You want to shoot it? Sure. Next thing I know, I was shooting comedies, and I was the king of comedy. And then one comedy after another, Half-Baked, Waterboy, Scary Movie,
David Wayne's
Little Man,
film.
White Chicks, and so on and on it went. Comedy after comedy, big comedy, phone up Steve Bernstein. Yeah. And I said, enough of this, and I started shooting big action films. And then shot Monster. And then it was art films again. Mm-hmm. So was there order to this? No, I can look back now, because I'm a particular age, and I can say, oh, yeah, there was order to it all. I had this vision. But most of us, I would conjecture, don't have a specific vision.
It's a happy accident.
We stumble forward, and then we impose the order afterwards, because the order gives us comfort. Without order, it's terror. And that we talked a lot about story. It goes back to the idea of how we perceive film. There's these orthodoxies in the film industry. There are these books, these courses, McKee and others saying
should be
it's
story
three
structure,
acts,
all these
three acts,
stuff.
and then the
visit the ghost,
all these
inciting incident,
all these sorts of things. And I'm not sure if we had applied those same rules to the novel at the fin de cercle when James Joyce was writing, Virginia Woolf was writing. I'm not sure if we applied those same absolute rules to painting. I'm not sure if we applied those same absolute rules to music, whether we would have had the rich history of art in the 20th century that we've had. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, the film industry, and I think it's because we're using so much money, there are people in the
What's a corporate order? And that's one thing.
Well, the corporations are saying, hey, you got to do something. It's got to make money.
Yeah.
So if you want to make money, we want it to be predictive. And it's going to be predictive. There must be a science to this. Mm-hmm. I work with people who say to me, what's the science to narrative and writing? How can you guarantee that this script you write is going to make money? And think about how crazy that is, saying to an artist, write a script that makes money. And here's the checklist. And here's the inciting incident. Here's the first act. Here's the second act. So what happens is people no longer experiment with half of what art is, which is form. It's form and content. And yet when we see experiments in form, when suddenly we have a film like Moulin Rouge, which is through films with win, when we see what Charlie Kaufman does, when we see what Mike Leigh does, when we see suddenly Quentin Tarantino, really to a certain degree, these long scenes that focus on character rather than simply narrative progression, then we see, I think, a more interesting style of filmmaking. So we say, how does it apply to my life? My life and my art are the same thing. Yeah. Both have an artificial imposition of order to try to make it seem as if it's following a single narrative thread, but it's not. It's simply trying to look at chaos and make it seem logical so it's less terrifying to us. So my life, say it's successful or not, has just been a series of terrifying incidents governed by chaos and absolutely nothing else.
Are you happy?
Am I happy? Wow. I'm looking at this poster. Well, let's get into it. Poster.
What's funny is
it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Am I happy? What a great question and what a hard question. Are any of us ultimately happy? I live in fear of not doing the things that I want to achieve. Mm-hmm. I live in fear of my own mortality, not just my physical mortality, but my creative mortality. Yeah. I write every day, and on some days when I'm writing well, I am thinking that I am a god. Mm-hmm. On those days where I can't write, I'm thinking, that's it. The mind is deteriorating. I had a window where I could have done something great, and I missed it. Even my movies, my new movie, the John Malkovich film, Last Call, has had a difficult history, legal actions and everything else, which we're now through. But
I think it started in 2016. As you started
about 3 years ago, and that's only just now coming out. And I'm thinking, this is the best writing I've ever done in my life. Mm-hmm. Malkovich said it was the best writing he's read in a script in 10 years. Everybody loved it. It went down to Rio, and 5 out of 6 newspapers said it's Oscar worthy. So this is my masterpiece. 3 years in coming out. So the dark night of the soul, thinking no one's ever going to see what is my best writing, is difficult. The irony is that now, as I moved on, I look back to my last script. I'm thinking, hey, this new script is actually maybe even better than that. It's more accessible. It's more commercial. We constantly change, but that's my fear. And you can't be happy if you're frightened. Mm-hmm. And the fact that I'm frightened of dying, I'm frightened of losing my skills, I'm frightened of people not seeing my films, we put ourselves in harm's way by being artists. And so we're never really going to find that unqualified joy and happiness if we're going to be artists. If we want to move to Greece, sit by the water, and ruminate on bigger spiritual things, as a kind of quasi-Buddhist, or in my case, a Jubu, then we might find happiness. But if we try to do things, we're going to fail more often than we succeed. And look, we're in an industry where 9.5 out of every 10 movies fail.
Mm-hmm.
So, however we measure failure. So that means that most of the time, for all our good intentions, we're going to fail. So am I happy? Some of the time. But oddly, I can't imagine doing anything else. I'd rather fail and be unhappy and on this path to growth and understanding than to be joyous and vacuous.
Well, looking
Love that,
outside, yes, and that is brilliant. I mean, I think also a better word is, are you human? And you definitely are human, and that is the way to look at it, because we all go through. I think some of the greatest artists I've ever worked with or met were fundamentally insecure because they could see the art where it should be. You get that position where you go, okay, I see how the script should be, how good the script, because you're comparing it against everyone else and all these thousands of things. And at one point, you have to let go and say, okay, it's done. It's done. And it's never done. I mean, there's never, I'm sure you've looked at all your past work and said, oh, what if I'd done this or done that? But
that's brilliantly observed. The old saying is that you never finish a film or script, you just abandon it.
Yes.
So yeah, every script I've ever written, and look, going back to the last call, there are 14 scenes with John Malkovich were superb. John's actually very funny, and these scenes are hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
We did the edit. It was nearly 3 hours, the film.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do it. Everyone loved the film, but a 3-hour film, you're not going to have any commercial success with it. So I hired a brilliant editor in the UK called Chris Gill, worked with Danny Boyle, did 20 superb editor. And I gave him about 150 pages of notes. And I said, this is the way I want you to recut it. And he rightfully said to me, Steven, I'm going to recut it. I'm not going to look at any of your notes. And I'll show you the film afterwards to see what you think. So he did that. I was outraged. How dare he?
I think that's a brilliant way to look at it, because you want that outside voice looking at it. I mean, it's as an artist, you go, listen, I want another opinion. I'm too close to it. I've seen it a million times.
Right.
I need that extra. You need the audience perspective.
Exactly right. And we went there, and I looked at it, and the film was down to just under 2 hours, so commercial length.
Mm-hmm.
He'd cut out most of my favorite scenes.
Yeah.
A lot of John Malkovich scenes. John Malkovich being fabulously funny. My very favorite scene in the whole film, he cut out.
Mm-hmm.
But I looked at the film as a whole, and I said, it works.
Yeah.
Now it works. And that's the one we took to Rio, and that's when they had all the success, and that's the one that people bought. It's going to be distributed. But someday, I'm going to take this hour material of just John, string it end to end, put a voiceover on somehow, and do Last Call 2, because it's a masterpiece. This is the dilemma, is that an individual scene can be perfect, but doesn't fit the overall vision of the film. That was the difficulty. So, we struggle, but we do the best we can. But very often, we're not the best measure or determinant or judge of sometimes what our own work should be. As you rightly say, you need an outside voice. You need to constantly compromise and constantly question yourself. This idea of taking humility into the process, Buddhist humility, is very important. As a director, I won't mention because he may not want me to mention it. The first day of every film that I've ever worked with him on, he would say, I want everyone to know that I don't know what I'm doing. I need your help and assistance. Guide me. I won't always be wise. I'll ultimately make a determination, but I want all of your input. That humility, and he believed it, is essential.
That's leadership.
Yeah,
really
that's really
what it is. It's leadership. It's saying to everyone, I can't do this without you.
Exactly.
And that's a beautiful thing for people to hear. That makes them want to be invested with you. That's building a community, because every film's a separate community. So you're building a community, saying we're all in this together. Help me. And I being a writer, I've written so many years. You learn through the writing process that someone's going to walk in and go, whether you're at the network or someone else, someone goes, I heard that joke before, let's cut it. And you go, no one else has heard it. What are you talking about? Yeah, but that executive heard it, and he doesn't like it anymore. He just heard it twice during rehearsal. Right. Yeah, he wants a new one. Right. And as a writer, you get used to going, okay, because if you can't come up with a solution, you are not a writer. Yeah. And the old saying, a writer has to kill his children. And sometimes you look at a script, and I'm sure your masterpieces, and someone goes, we can't afford it, we can't use it, we don't need it in the scene, not going to work with our days, cut it.
Yeah. No, my son taught me that. It taught me exactly what you're saying, which is the ability to take notes. My son's a writer and editor, and whenever people give me notes, I start arguing with him early in my writing career. And then he said, Dad, he's always been, from the time he was small, he's smarter than me and wiser. He said, just listen to the notes, think about it. And then try to employ them. Even if you're sure they're wrong, for the moment think that they're right. And what I would discover is that when I did that process, and you may do the same thing, you don't always end up agreeing completely with the note, but you discover something about the script through that exercise.
It's almost like when you're a writer, you're a little bit blind.
Yes.
And sometimes you need people to guide and say, and I don't care where a good idea comes from.
Right.
I mean, whether it comes from a guy, an extra to whatever, I'm listening because I believe the universe, if you want to call it, or creativity. There are points, like how I started writing was, everyone said, "You're a really good writer." I'm an actor. I don't write. I'm an actor. I moved next to John Wells. He was my landlord, and I'd hear him typing John Wells. He was the president of the WGA. He's done incredible work. West Wing, you name it.
Legend.
And so he turns to me and goes, "You should write." And I go, "Well, I don't tell John, nah. I'm writing plays." So we shared a mailbox. And I remember this, he comes up and he has a green Writers Guild envelope, which is, I'm in the Writers Guild. So when you see the green envelope, it's a residual. So you're extremely happy.
We're always happy when we get those.
Yeah. It's like, it's always, you open it. Wow. And I'm always waiting. Whoever wrote Titanic, I can't wait to hear the screams from opening those residuals. But he turns to me and he's like, "Oh, well, I'm a writer too, Rick. And I think you can write. And I hear your stuff and I think it's really good." And I go, "Oh, no, John, we're not." He goes, "Why don't you write TV?" And I go, I couldn't. I'm a playwright. And I showed him this check I got royalty for a play that was in Canada. So I was like, "Look at this. I'm an international playwright. I have a royalty of, I think it was $600. Wow." So he opens his residual check, shows it to me, and I went, "I want to do what you do." And so I joined the Warner Bros. Writing program, and I did all that stuff. But even now, later on, looking back, I desperately want people to read my work for one reason. You just want that audience to say, what'd you think about it? How'd you feel? I always ask people, read it first to tell me how you felt. Don't come back and go, "Okay, now you should do this or change that." But it's our inherent need to have an audience.
Well, there's that, and I think the criticisms, although painful at the time, are sometimes things that we get the greatest value from.
Yeah.
That what I like to do, and I say this to young writers, is take everybody's notes. The instructions they give you as to how to fix your script, you can ignore that.
Yeah.
But what you're interested in is where they had the problem. So very often you'll give, I'm sure you found this, you'll give your script to people and they'll say, page 8, it doesn't work, and here's what you should do. Next person, page 8, but here's what you should do. And none of them know what you should do because they didn't write the script. They don't understand if you change one thing on one page, you got to change 15 other things as well, and there's a balance they don't get. But the fact that 5, 6, 7 people all identified the problem, that's what you should be listening to. And now you know where your problem is, but you, as the writing, come up with the solution. Suggestions are well-intended, but rarely are they much use. Identification of the problem is of great value. And also, the great privilege we have is that we get our life examined. There's nothing more terrifying than an opening night of a film when everyone's going to see it for the first time. But you also know that people are looking at it and measuring it, and you are looking at your work and thinking, I wonder what this is going to be like through an audience's eyes. And that changes you. You're now living your life publicly, which means you have to examine your life in every detail, and the examined life is the one that's worth living. The unexamined life is not worth it.
There's also the cautionary tales, the over-examined life, which is another thing.
Well,
but the unexamined life is, of course, coming from a Greek philosopher in Greece. Unexamined life isn't worth living, but
and the unlived life isn't worth examining.
Yes, exactly. And I think what you've done and all your work. I'm honored to meet you and have a conversation with you. This is the fun part of life. This is the happy part, I think, is that when we can talk, sit down and discuss the craft and your humility, and I see it very plainly, tells me you're great. And
well, maybe. I think it's a well-earned humility. Churchill said, he should be nicer to Neville Chamberlain. He's a very humble man. And Churchill said, well, of course he is. He's got so much to be humble about. So I'm humble. Look, I'm a deeply, you're very kind, but deeply flawed individual. I've made many mistakes, errors, things that if I could go back, I would change. People I've hurt, I would alter. The injuries I've done to myself, the errors I've made even in my career. But the only virtue I've had, the sustained virtue, is perseverance.
Yeah.
That I would keep starting over again, doing new things, challenging myself. And look, when I did my first film as director, it took me a very long time to raise the money. We ran out of money. I had the plane that I had was gone. The flat that I had was gone. Most of my possessions were gone because I put everything into a movie, and I was desperate, and somehow I didn't quit. I borrowed, I begged, I cajoled, and managed to keep going. And I learned from that experience. I learned what is of real value. I learned my own weaknesses, my strengths, and I learned a lot about the film industry, which I had a very privileged perspective before that because people were hiring me.
Yeah.
Now I was in the position of hiring, having to raise money and be responsible for the money. It's a very, very hard thing. And the only thing that I've done is see the industry from a lot of different perspectives. I've written 26, 27 screenplays now, which were commissioned or paid for, being made into movies. Cinematographer for over 30 years, director of both television, a lot of commercials, and feature films, produced as well. I've seen the same misery from a lot of different perspectives, and it's still awful, no matter how you're looking at it, our world, but it's interesting. And it makes us better, more multifaceted individuals and better equipped ultimately to deal with the bigger spiritual questions of our lives.
But that's the one thing I would say about you is you go, yes, I'm a deeply flawed human being. Okay, that's enlightenment. If someone realizes they're a deeply flawed human being, you're one step of becoming a much better human being. And I think that's what people lack, is that people don't ever look at themselves and goes, yeah, I'm deeply flawed. It's going back to saying, hey, I'm a sinner. I'm deeply flawed. There's something wrong with me. But that's the human existence. Eventually, you're going to die.
But don't you think, I think that's really interesting what you're saying, but don't you think most people feel that? It's just that because we live in a city right now, I'm temporarily living here until I go back to Greece.
Yeah. But most people don't admit it. There's a difference.
But maybe they just don't admit it publicly because to make yourself vulnerable in Los Angeles is like throwing yourself on the freeway. It's just people are just going to run over you. Very rarely are people going to look at you and say, oh, you're flawed, you've made errors. Great, we're not going to hire you. Remember the first interview I did after living in England for 26, 27 years? And I am American, so I can do this faux accent. And the producer looked at me and said, are you the very best that I can hire? And I said, well, I don't know if I am. That's really for you to determine. And later my agent rang and said, what did you say? What did you say? He didn't want to hire you. And I said, well, he asked me if I was the very best. And I said, I don't know. He said, yeah, he said that. But he said, if you don't have confidence, how can he have confidence? I said, I don't know. I would doubt anybody who sells himself at a meeting. Why not just say, here's my skills. I'm a person like any other, some good things, some bad things. And you make the determination whether I'm right for you, but don't make me sell to you. It's something we were all three of us talking when we first came in about how the selling has become such an important part of life in Los Angeles. To the point you'd start doubting anybody because everybody, even I go to Starbucks on a rare occasion, and they're saying, hey, how are you? Good to see you. Have a great day. And we all know in that social interaction, they don't give up about us.
No. And the funny thing is, if you actually stop at someone and go, well, my day's actually been really hard.
Yeah.
And just, I'm glad you asked me here. Before I had my Frappuccino, I really want to just tell you how bad my day's been.
You'd be arrested. They were sure that they're going to pull out your gun in a second.
They won't let you use a bathroom.
No, they can't.
They've changed that. You can use the bathroom while being black at Starbucks. but you can't, tell people a lot of times your flaws. But I guess the maturity level, someone would go, if you told me that, you said, listen, if you said to me, are you the best writer I could ever hire? I said, no, I thought the guy who wrote Shawshank Redemption is really good. And I could name off more. And God, if Shakespeare was alive, that's a guy who's really good. He's got some great basic stories that you're going to love.
Can't get to him though anymore.
There's always someone greater than you, and there's always someone worse than you.
Yeah.
And the problem that people, and the way you kind of have to look at it is in Hollywood, where we're all at, we get our ass kicked by some of the most talented people you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
And you'll get your ass kicked by some of the most least talented people that either politically move themselves in a position where they're going to tell you how it should be done, or 1,000 things. In the end, you have to kind of know your own personal integrity and remember who you are. That's the hardest thing.
That's brilliantly put. I think you're absolutely right. Look, and also it's not about who's better, because the problem we have, I think, generally in this country and this industry is these lists that everyone makes. Who's the best? I mean, it's kind of absurd that we have Oscars and Golden Globes and all the rest, because really when you're looking at artists, you're saying this artist is better than this artist. This piece of art is better. You go to the Louvre, you go to the Prado, any of the great art galleries. Do they give scores to the paintings and say, this is a 20, this is a 15, this is a 17? No, it's just all great art, and our experience of each artist and each bit of art is different. Each one stimulates in a different way. But why do we measure? Why is there a top 10 list? Why is there a top 5 list? Or why is there material value? This writer costs you this much, this writer costs you this much. Again, it goes back to the idea of film being so expensive. It's become an industry, so we've acquired a commodity value rather than just being recognized as different. So different artists write differently. Charlie Kaufman's right for certain films. Black is different for Jack Black. Not Jack Black, the other one, the writer. Sean Black is better for a different type of film. Who's to say whether it's appropriate for that individual project? I don't think that we should be put on a sliding scale of ultimate value.
How many times is something that no one thought would work became huge hits? You know, there is no. I mean, I actually met the person who did coverage on Star Wars for Fox Studios, I think it was, and I asked her. I said, "What do you think of it?" She says, "It's the worst movie script I'd ever read. It was ridiculous. Were they thinking? They're going to use word sequences. Oh, it's going to be horrible, horrible." And of course, it turned out great.
Right. Yeah.
But you know, there's plenty of people. And if you sat there and said top 10 list of Van Gogh, where would he be at that time when they're making a top 10 list in the Paris Review or whatever?
He sold one painting in his lifetime. So, you know,
I just reposted it on our web our thing. Yeah, because that was brilliant. I didn't know that, and I read it, and it was like,
oh yeah, no, it's. Here's the thing: is sometimes even we're as artists, you're visionary. You see something no one else sees. Van Gogh obviously saw things that no one else saw, especially at his time, but resonates for generations of being moved by it. I mean, Cheech Marin, I know real well, and he told me that the only way to see art is in person. Because you look at the thickness of the brush, the way the painting is, and how the light hits and all that. And I think it's brilliant to look at it that way.
Well, also, we go back to this idea of orthodoxies that are exercised throughout the industry about the way things should be done, particularly, again, in script writing, because both of us are writers. Yeah. And there's a desperation from the studios, from the readers, and sometimes from the writers themselves to saying, here's the model. Here's the way all scripts should be written. And it's fundamentally flawed, because if all scripts should be written in one way, and 90% or 95% of all scripts fail, isn't that a failed model? Yeah. If everyone's following the same basic orthodoxy, and yet most scripts are failing, then therefore there must be something wrong with that model. But you can't say that to anybody because they're desperate for rules. Yeah. Going back to where this discussion began, which is my belief that the world is essentially chaotic, that we arbitrarily apply order to it because it gives us some comfort. The idea that if we do something and we'll be rewarded for it, if we write a script according to the 3 acts, we'll be rewarded for it. If we are a good person and don't commit a crime, we'll be rewarded for it. If we work hard and are forthright in our honest opinions, if we're not immoral,
you're talking to me.
The idea over and over again that we'll be rewarded by doing certain behaviors is gratifying. The tragedy as you get older is you look back on your life and think, well, I wasn't always rewarded for doing something virtuous. I wasn't always rewarded for following rules. And very often, in my moments of absolute madness or self-destruction, I did some of my best work. Doing music videos, first half of the day, everyone's very careful in those days because everything was done in a day, 18, 20-hour day. Shooting some band, be it the Eurythmics or whatever else you're doing, and careful, perfectly placed shots. Now it's the second half of the day. You got like 78 setups you got to do, and you got 3 hours. All of a sudden, the camera's on your shoulder, the lights are on the end of fish poles, everyone's rushing around, the smoke machine's there, you're throwing water every which way, every other effect you can have. And then you look at the dailies. Your best stuff, the last 3 hours.
Yeah.
When you stopped thinking and you were being intuitive. And the beginning of the day, when you're being so careful, boring and uninteresting. Yeah. Writing. Some of the best writing I've done, sadly, is when that deadline, which seems so far away when I began the writing process, is suddenly that Friday. And now I'm staying up all night drinking 25 cups of coffee or worse, and doing whatever else I have to do, or worse, to stay awake. Yeah. And then I read my writing. Sure, there's spelling errors and there's logic errors and everything else, but there's an energy to the writing, and the characters that come alive. I'm thinking, why wasn't I writing like this 6 months ago? Yeah. It's just the strange process of our lives, which is the irony is, though we desire rules, it's when we throw them out that we do our best work.
Mm-hmm. I think that's so true. Is that we look for I think two things happen. I think in the end of our lives that we will see there was an order, whether we saw it or not.
Wow. And I hope you're right.
I'm hoping I'm right, too. But the beauty of that is that we don't really know. And none of us will be around when we find out.
Look, the people I've known who died, who I've loved, and I don't mean to get too bleak and maybe we'll cut this out, but I've looked in their faces and I've thought what I saw there was not pain, was not joy, but also neither was there some comfort, which everyone tells me is going to be there. What I saw was confusion. And that's the thing that I'm most frightened of. At the end of this complex, multifaceted, wild ride, that rather than having the understanding that I seek, it's going to be the greatest tragedy of all, which is absolute confusion. Like, that's it? What did it all mean? And I'm desperate for it not to end that way.
Yeah.
But all the evidence suggests that's exactly how it's going to end. Like, you want order? Sorry.
Wow. Yeah, see, there's we have two different philosophies on that.
I like yours better.
Yeah, I think you need two different philosophies because that's what you do.
I like yours better. I want there to be, I just want to have a smile on my face and think, oh, now I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
That's the way. Well,
that was a great ending to a script. I saw that unfold right now in front of my eyes. The way you explained it was beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, do you remember Jim Carrey's speech at the Golden Globes, which I adored? Jim Carrey said, "Hi, I'm Jim Carrey, 3-time Golden Globe winner. And I know that if I just win one more, it'll all have meaning."
I was one of the writers of Living Color, and I worked with Jim like constantly.
Right.
And a very brilliant guy. But I have to admit, I didn't appreciate him at the time. I was like, please stop joking. Just 1 second, stop being on.
Yeah.
But a brilliant mind, and, Jamie Foxx, too. I mean, some really brilliant people. But there's always a divine unhappiness with artists. It's always there. There's always something there. And I think, because in the end, you're hoping the confusion won't be there. You're saying there will be confusion. And I'm saying there won't be confusion.
Right.
It's all going to work out.
I'm delighted at the prospect of order. And by the way, you could short circuit for me. If you tell me what it all means right now, I don't have to worry for the next 20 years, or however long until I die. So just tell me why it's going to have all meaning and what purpose my life had, and then I'll be happy. So here, look, what broadcasting right now on this broadcast, the meaning of life about to be transmitted.
You will be at the end of your life.
Yes.
You will see those moments that you thought meant absolutely nothing.
Right.
That meant everything in the world. That one person you helped out who looked at you and said thank you, that you changed their life. The one student in your classes that you spoke to that took every word you said and interpreted in their own life and made brilliant art. All the things you have done have meaning.
Because you've got a healthier mind. See, what I'm really going to be thinking about is all the talentless shits that took advantage of me for my entire career and how much money they're making, how happy they are. I'm thinking, I'm dying and they're happy. The bastards, and I'll be gone. That's what I'm really going to be thinking. You're going to be thinking, all the people I held with.
The confusion is going to be, how can I get to them?
And you can try to fuck all the people I held. It's all the people. Even if I won the Oscar someday, I'd like to say, this gives me pleasure for all the misery of those who hate me, who didn't want me to shit. Look at this.
I'm happy. You'll never feel this happiness. Yes.
And I'll pretend to be happy, even though I won't be, just to give them misery. Look, I hope you're right. It's we have no choice. We're here, and we're going to be here until we're not. So in the interim, we have two choices. We can fill our lives with empty joy and as much white noise as we can to not feel things, or we can feel things very deeply and try to come to some understanding of what it all means. I've certainly erred towards the latter. I'm trying to figure it out. It's a journey, and hopefully, as you rightly say, it'll end in understanding. That's certainly all of our hopes.
Yeah, well, I think between both our philosophies, there is truth for someone out there to hear.
Yep.
And
this is very heavy for a film.
Yeah. It's a very,
so the other question would be, how do you get started in the film business? I'm thinking, well, work hard and build a network. But I didn't think we'd be talking about what we're going to be thinking at a moment of death.
Yeah,
I mean, the young people are going to think, great, now I know what to think of the moment of death. But how do I start in film, man? Come on.
Starting in film is exactly what you did. You didn't let anything stop you.
No.
Basically, that was it. You said, I'm gonna approach it this way. That's the same spirit all artists have. I remember one time Quentin Tarantino came and saw a play of mine. And I was like, oh, people are like, oh, Quentin Tarantino's like Quentin Tarantino's. afterwards, he loved my work, and we went to the bar next door. And we drank and hung out all night, and different people. And I have to say, the one thing I walked away from him was, he's a kid. He never forgot being a child. And I think in some ways, as artists, we have to remember that. And what a child does, you figure out improv. Kid goes, "You're it." "Oh, I'm it? Oh my God. Well, I'm not going to be it. You're it." All that stuff. They have the game. They play everything. They do it all. They interpret it. They jump into the game. And what you did is you jumped into the game. You sat there and said, "Hey, if it comes down to it, you need a cinematographer, I'm that. You need a director, I'm that." That is almost the hallmark, because I look at it, and I've had a very eclectic career as well, from writing to everything else, is whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
Yeah, and Quentin Bell's enthusiasm is infectious, and something also I hope I bring myself to every set and every experience and undertaking, which is go into it with passion.
Yeah.
So whether you're going to fail or succeed, love what you're doing. Every shooting day that I start, either as a cinematographer or as a director subsequently, I bring the crew together, and I would say, here's what we're going to be doing today. And here's what I'm worried about. Here's what I think we might succeed. This is what's going to be fun. This is what the intention of the scene is. And you do that because you want everyone to feel part of that process.
Yeah.
And you also do it because you want them to share your fears and anxieties and your enthusiasms. And if you're enthusiastic, you're absolutely right. Everybody comes along. And I was, there's videos of me behind the monitor, because apparently I move my arms a lot when I'm watching the monitor and things. But it is infectious because people see how much I love doing that. Yeah. And they then love being on set.
You're a conductor.
It's a magical place. It's a magic place. And you should make everyone feel that they're part of that magic and really enjoying it. That's not what I'm going to when I'm talking about the sadness of it all, because at the end of a shoot, the last day of a shoot, there's nothing sadder than the last day of a film shoot, TV show. But when you're there, the sense of joie de vivre, the sense of joy in process, you're right. Quentin is that way. We should all be that way.
Yeah.
And I guess we should be that way all the time. Whether it ultimately has meaning or not is a different issue, but along the way, we should absolutely be loving every moment of our lives. And I don't doubt that.
Yeah, and I agree. It's just, take a look at your life, appreciate it. Because I remember favorite moment for me, and I don't know if you have one in Hollywood, was the end of the day in a studio. When you're seeing this whole studio start to, gear down, sunset, you're walking through a studio, you're seeing sets, you're seeing this, and you go, you're kind of a part of anywhere. You're a dream maker. You're making dreams for people, and they're going to watch it, and they're going to see it, and they'll be moved by it, and they'll be changed by it, and all those thousand things, or possibly not at all. But the whole point, we're in a business where people would love to be in this, and you also look at that and go, why would you want to be in this? Half the time, but we have a privilege, and if you have that sense, and you do, what I really admire about you as an artist is how eclectic your career has been, and how you have been a chameleon in a strange way. I mean, from New York, London, Greece, everything, because you have a sense of who you are, which I do definitely see. So it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Tuddy, do you have any questions?
No, I'm just absorbing. I'm one of those students and you're just listening. Like I said, I started following Steven on social, and that's how we ended up connecting. And it's
I kept sending you things, kept swiping the other direction, so we never hooked up. No, I'm joking.
yeah, that's right. So,
not that social.
Did you swipe it to the left or the right? Which I don't even know.
No. It's on Instagram. So I should mention, there's a site of mine called Steve Bernstein, director writer. I think it's called.
Bernstein. Okay, Steve Bernstein, director writer.
And what I do is it's not. It's going to what we're talking about. It's not about self promotion. So rather than using the site to sell myself, all I do is I give a little educational insights into cinematography, screenwriting, directing, film production, design. So I'll take a little video image of a film I've worked on or friends have worked on, and I say, hey, here's a green screen. Here's how it works. Here's how they did this sequence. I like it. Or we look at some acting sequences. And I say, here's a very interesting performance because they stumble part of the way through, so it's part scripted, part improv. The improv gives it a sense of verisimilitude. It seems real, therefore it's more effective. That's why I kind of like the fact they went off script here. And there's 700-800 different things like that I've done, and people have got into it, and now it starts conversations about the nature of filmmaking, the nature of writing, the nature of directing, the nature of acting, and that's what I've tried to do because I got work. I don't need to promote myself for work, but I thought it'd be kind of cool to talk to other people on the same journey you and I are on and say, hey, in looking at a performance and looking at a script, how much has to be the script as you wrote it, and how much can be improv to get that reality, that substance,
the
that
documentary
sense
almost feel to it.
almost the sense that it's
Larry David.
The imperfect thing is also almost more perfect than the perfect because it seems more real. And how do we get that verisimilitude through the use of handheld camera or rough lighting and so on? So we discuss all those things, and I guess I do the opposite on Facebook with Steve Bernstein, writer-director as opposed to director-writer, but Facebook and Instagram both doing it. And it's become a sense of community where I rarely say, here's a picture of me in an interesting place. It's more like, here's a film that I worked on. Here's how we approached it. What do you think? And we got filmmakers from all around the world, writers writing to me, actors writing to me, and we've just started this dialogue, which is kind of cool. And I'm doing the same thing with the movie. The film comes out in a few months, and rather than just releasing the film, what I've been doing is saying, here's the way I wrote it. Here's why I wrote it in this way. Here's things that may be of interest to you. So when you see the film, you'll understand what approach we took in this scene with John Malkovich, in this scene with Tony Hale, in this scene with Rodrigo Santoro. So rather than people just going to see a movie, they'll understand what went into that movie, and it will be an educational process. I've been teaching for 30 years since I wrote the book and before, and I just like the idea of being the person that is looking at my Instagram pages. If that had been available to me when I was first starting, first time I went onto a stage and I had to do a green screen and had no idea how to do it, I wish there had been social media then and someone had said, here's what you do, here's how it works, here's how it might fail. And so that's what we're trying to do now.
Yeah.
Well, I think what you're doing is admirable, and you're leaving a legacy because you're affecting people.
Thank you.
And that is probably one of the greatest things any artist wants. Because you're right, you do worry, after I'm gone, what's going to happen? What part of me is the world leaving behind? And I think that's in the hearts and minds of the next generation, and it goes on.
I'm going to be going to Greece to work with Steven.
I'm figuring out how I can. I'll be craft service in Greece.
It doesn't matter. You just have to say, I worked on this film. You have to say, the trick is never say what you did.
Okay.
And the best job of all is to be a producer, because you can be a real producer, right? Or no disrespect, but you can be an associate producer.
Yeah.
But when you introduce yourself to someone, you just say, yeah, I was the producer of Titanic. Now, you may have been the associate producer who was working craft services, but nobody knows as long as you're more than 3,000 miles away from Los Angeles.
Exactly. The further away, the more critically people believe you. Here, it's like, well, you're never a prophet in your hometown.
No.
That's the bottom line.
No.
And so we definitely all want to go out to Greece. Somehow I got to figure out how to do it. We got to figure out a film that we can shoot in Greece.
Well, there's a lot to do there. There's mountains, there's beaches.
Let me do a promotion right now. The greatest concentration of microclimates in the world is in Greece. So if you want mountains, we have mountains. Waterfalls, we have waterfalls. And if you want perfect islands, we have perfect islands. There's a skilled workforce. You're part of the EU, so you can bring workers from anywhere. The most competitive tax credit virtually in the world at 35%, which is very, very good. You have, obviously, limitless hotels. You have beautiful environs, and you're going to be staying in paradise. The weather is pretty much perfect all year round. So, and if you're trying to get an actor in your movie, your independent film, and you want to say to an actor, look, we can shoot in some grim northeast industrial town where the snow is kind of brownish yellow. And I grew up in Buffalo, so I'm going to tell you about brownish yellow snow. I love the place, by the way. Buffalo also a great place to shoot. Or you can shoot your film in paradise. By azure oceans and perfect skies and warm water and with a 35% tax credit and cheap rates in hotels, I think a lot of those actors are going to be thinking, yeah, if you don't mind, I'd rather shoot in Greece. So,
great food, too.
And
great
best food in the world. And,
best food.
And the warmest of all the places I've lived in the world, I've lived in a lot of places. The warmest, gentlest, most inviting people. Nobody has a bad time in Greece. And a lot of people think Greece is Mykonos, which is party all night. Mykonos is one island, as Santorini is. A lot of the 2,000, 3,000 islands we have in Greece are simply paradise. Uninhabited virtually, a little taverna, a few hotels, and white sandy beach and perfect water. It's a great place to shoot.
Perfect.
Here we go.
On that note,
I'm in.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for
All right. Thanks, Steven.